This week, my guest is cannabis feminist Jackie Mostny, who talks about her journey from the Bay Area to Israel to Los Angeles and about the concept of Shablunt. Jackie, I'm going to start as provocative as I've been on any podcast. You have said the future of cannabis is female and Jewish. Please let me know what that means.
Great. Okay, so the future of cannabis is female is one of our taglines at Cannabis Feminist, and it has many parts to it. One of them is that cannabis is the female plant. Hemp is the male plant. It's what is very strong and fibrous. It is kind of low in cannabinoid concentration. And cannabis is this female healing medicinal plant. It has the good stuff in it. It has the THC, strong CBD, THCA, other cannabinoids that we're only really just learning about now. And what we're trying to celebrate is this female plant. And saying that the future of cannabis is female, meaning that finally this plant that has been criminalized and put away and shunned and put down can finally really come forth as being celebrated for being female. And we also feel that way as women, that there's a huge transitioning happening in the world and that the divine feminine is rising up and that healing is coming from women really taking charge in the communities as they have, but now really given the praise, attention, and appreciation that they might have not received in the past. And what we have seen by hosting cannabis women's circles around Los Angeles, at least, and we've had them in other places in the country, and they've happened around the world, is that a lot of Jewish women are showing up to participate and to say that this is an industry they choose. Cannabis is a plant they choose for healing. And it's been amazing to see the kind of micro Jewish women's community that's coming forth from the cannabis industry, at least in California, becoming legal, but also the stigma changing around the U.S. and the world about cannabis. And I don't know if it's just because maybe Jewish homes were always a little more relaxed when it came to cannabis, so that we feel more comfortable having these conversations. But there's some powerhouse women who are coming forth, and I've been super blessed to move to Los Angeles to join this community and to meet women that I also can enjoy Shabbat with and celebrate the holidays with and have that rapport that you have with friends who share a culture that is similar to yours.
So let's start at the beginning. How did Jackie get here? Where are you from? And what was your journey to get to this very high place?
Great. So I'm from San Francisco, born and raised in the city. I went to Temple Emmanuel, loved it, taught Hebrew school there. And then I went to UC Berkeley, super close by. And because I was super close by, I kind of made a deal with my family that was anytime there was a break and whenever I want, I'm leaving. I can see you during the year, so if there's any chance that I can have to leave the Bay Area, I'm going to. So after graduation, I moved to South America, and I was living in Buenos Aires. Traveled around Brazil for a couple months by myself after. And then I moved to Tel Aviv, and I was living in Tel Aviv for about a year and a half, working with Israeli tech startups. That's something I was doing actually as a Berkeley student. There was an amazing club I was a part of called Tamid, where we do business consulting for Israeli startups. And being, close enough to Silicon Valley, I was able to create a relationship with UpWest Labs, which is an amazing accelerator for Israeli startups in Silicon Valley. And when I got to Israel, I already had a community. Turns out the people I knew in the Valley were, big wigs out there who were also just sweet and open, and here's our community, and, who would you like to meet, and let's make things happen. And I was able to learn a lot, have a great time, and also take time for my own Jewish learning and education, which was incredible.
And so this podcast is based on 4 questions.
Okay.
Just like all of Judaism is based on questions, and 4 is a kind of a consistent questions number. Did you have a Jewish aha moment in your life?
Yes, many. When I first got to Israel, I went on a trip, kind of like Birthright, but more for tech startups. It was called Bizrael. It's kind of a funny, corny name, but it was an amazing.
I like it, actually.
It was an amazingly well done, put together 10 days. I met incredible people there. I actually met a lot of people in Los Angeles that I've reconnected with since I've moved back here, and one part of it, so it was sponsored by Aish, or at least part of it was, and one of the things we had to do was do Aish learning, where they broke up the men and the women, and we got to speak with Orthodox women. And I really connected with the woman that I was getting to know. Why do you wear a wig? She came from Santa Barbara. She grew up on the beach, and she chose this life in Rehavia, in Jerusalem, to become Orthodox. And it was incredible to really peel back the onion of, one, who this woman was, and also why go Orthodox? Why go deeper into Judaism? And it was unbelievable. She felt so empowered, connected to spirituality, connected to her beauty and femininity, and felt really part of a community that she can constantly learn from and turn to. And it was very touching, so much so that I prolonged moving back to Tel Aviv, and I actually spent another month in Jerusalem studying at Neve Yerushalayim, where I got to learn about the lunar calendar, really learn about it. I got to work with female Jewish educators and learn about their life, and also different interpretations of the Torah, which has led me to having a chavruta partner and still taking the time to study. And I found the importance of the fact that we as Jews are born and bred critical thinkers. It's incredible. Like you're saying, we build things off of questions. That those questions is what, push forward companies, products, ideas, solutions, community solutions. And it's beautiful. It was super inspiring. And I'm so grateful for my time in Jerusalem to take the time to study. And also it was like a little controversial for my family, which was like another aha moment, because from this I thought, oh my gosh, why don't I know all of this? And I call my grandma and I go, Grandma, she's from Iran. Grandma, when you were growing up, did your father say Kiddush during Shabbat? Yes. Did your mom light candles during Shabbat? Yes. And I go, why did we never do this growing up? We never celebrated Shabbat. We had family dinners every night. Persian Jews, we're together all the time, but that wasn't really part of my family.
What was her
tradition.
answer?
She said, they're telling you I'm a bad Jew. They're telling you that, she made it this
So there wasn't a purposeful omission.
She took offense to it. She thought I was accusing her of doing something wrong, and that wasn't it at all. I was super curious.
So growing up, you weren't Jewishly engaged and Jewishly involved?
I was, but it was more like temple, Hebrew school, Sunday school, and my dad's parents are Holocaust survivors who are very involved in the Jewish community and volunteered and were part of their temple, and we had all the holidays together. And for them, being Jewish was their culture, because being German was something they didn't feel attached to anymore. But with my mom's family, being Persian was really their dominant culture. And I didn't really know there was a whole Persian Jewish thing until I came to a wedding in LA when I was 15, and I met my cousins and their friends who were also Persian and Jewish. And I thought we were the only ones. I really wasn't raised knowing that existed, and it's been incredible to see what that entails and what that's like. And my Persian Jewish family that's here in LA is very Jewish and very Persian. But in the Bay Area, it wasn't.
But
really
when you were working in the tech world, even in Tel Aviv, most of the people you were working with were secular Jews.
Totally secular. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They laughed at me. I'm going to go to Jerusalem. What? Why? Oh, it's so far. I'm like, it's 45 minutes. That's most people's commute anywhere. And you're in a different world. It's spectacular. But a lot of my Israeli friends said that's kind of the privilege of being an American Jew, where you could be both secular and religious or curious.
So today, living in Los Angeles, what's your connection to the Jewish community?
I've been able to. I just moved here about 9 months ago, and
what brought you to LA?
So,
what brought you to LA? And I should ask you, what was your cannabis aha moment?
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's a lot of things, but what brought me to LA was a good friend of mine, Jessica Asaf. Father's Israeli, American Jew, and she grew up in San Francisco, and we were good friends for years, and we always kind of bonded over cannabis, and really showed a love for the plant and what it can do in social settings. For me, I never got into drinking alcohol. I never enjoyed it. So later in college, when I discovered cannabis and how I enjoyed consuming it, that was something kind of for me, and I met her who also felt the same way, and it was kind of nice to have a friend to share that with, especially another female friend, since a lot of it is, I guess the idea has been in the past that it's something guys do. It's a guy thing. But anyways, she started the blog Cannabis Feminist at the end of last year. I was working in a medical clinic in San Francisco running clinical trials for people with HIV and Hep C, and I got to know a lot of amazing people who use cannabis to help cope with their disease. And I quit that job at the end of last year. I went to Panama on this amazing trip that was focused a lot on environmental sustainability. It's called Hatch. Cool organization, awesome group of people. And while I was out in Panama, Jessica calls me and says, "Oh my gosh, Snoop Dogg wants to make a TV show of the blog. Move to LA and be my business partner. Like, let's do this." And I was like, yalla. And I went back from Panama to San Francisco and pretty much packed up my bag and came down here and sublet a place and found a house in Venice close to where she lives. And we just kind of got cranking on how do we really create a community and movement out of this, and how do we turn this into something that's viable and that we could, potentially support ourselves off of and live off of. And it was amazing. So
when you say, that the future of cannabis is feminine and Jewish, the Jewish sounds a little bit like an afterthought.
Yeah, our tagline is the future of cannabis is female. I don't know much about the future of cannabis is female and Jewish beyond the fact that we have seen and found this Jewish community to be not only accepting but leaders in the space. And we believe that leaders in this space are Jewish, and we already know they are since the endocannabinoid system was discovered at Hebrew U by Raphael Meshulam. And that changed everything from the get-go about really determining how incredible this plant is. And even in Israel now, there's unbelievable research happening at the Technion. There's farms that are coming up there now. I mean, Israel is taking the lead in what's happening in the cannabis industry, and most people I've met who are doing unbelievable work in the space, be it research, product development, you name it, they're all connected to Israel. And it's beautiful because it's teaching a lot of people who might not be connected to Israel in any other way.
So, but has this become, people are going to listen to this and they think this is a very smart young woman, and basically they're sitting around rooms with other people getting high, right? So you're talking about this differently than most people talk about cannabis or marijuana. And I'm wondering, have you been able to create an intersection between your Judaism and this, or they're separate?
As far as our business goes, they're separate because we want to be inclusive to all. We don't want there to be kind of a barrier to entry. But I mean, one of the traditions we started was something that we call Shablunt, We're on
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
We're on Shabbat.
Yep.
I love baking challah. I think it's a beautiful tradition and something that's upheld by women in the community. So I will go bake challah in the morning. I'm incredibly lucky. My rabbi and his wife Miriam, they're a Chabad from San Francisco. They moved to Venice 3 weeks after me. And so I'll wake up Friday mornings, ride my bike down, and with Miriam do Jewish learning and bake challah with her. And then I'll be able to come home, and in the afternoon we'll have our team come together and other guests, and we'll, I'll light candles, we'll say prayer, and we'll also smoke a joint or blunt and kind of end the week and kind of have that closure to the week and maybe reflect on our week a little, and then also create that space for Shabbat. It's beautiful. I love serving tea, having fresh fruit, the kind of whole Persian shtick, and it's a really nice way to make that tradition. And I think now more than ever, Shabbat and the idea of like a digital detox is critical, and cannabis is a great way to usher that in.
So, from your vantage point in the world, how do you see yourself as a Jewish woman going forward? I mean, is your Judaism going to be central to your life? Is it going to help you decide on who your significant other is going to be? Do you see yourself raising a Jewish family?
Oh yeah, absolutely. On all of that, I think that's been the most fun part about becoming an adult, is deciding what is it that you want to study, pursue, and kind of indulge your life with. And for me, Jewish learning is critical. I have had partners in the past who are both Jewish and non-Jewish, and the thing I care about the most is who wants to support me living a vibrant Jewish life. And is learning about Judaism and digging deep important to you? Because there's plenty of Jews who would say no and plenty of non-Jews who would say yes. So who knows? But having a Jewish family is very important to me, if that's not clear. And I think something I want to go back to is the fact that our events and our intention isn't to get people together to get high. A big part of what we're trying to show is that cannabis can be a health and wellness product, and that there's so many products out there that don't get you high and you still get incredible healing benefits from the plant. I think there is a stigma against getting high, and altered state of consciousness is celebrated in a lot of ways in our culture and is also demonized. And I think there's definitely such thing as too much of a good thing, but it's nice to have a little break from the one way your mind thinks and kind of take a step back and maybe have a bird's eye view, which is what cannabis does to me if I decide to smoke. People like other products. There's some things I like, some things I don't like, some things other people love, whatever. I think, all grandmas and grandpas should have some nice oil just to put on their arthritis or a sore back. It's not going to get them high. It's just really helpful, and it's medicine.
Right. And you had mentioned, going to the rabbi's house and baking the challah. One of the questions I ask people, because I think food is so an important part of Judaism, and maybe cannabis will become an important part of Judaism in the way that you're talking about it. But do you have a favorite Jewish food memory? And it's
so many.
Other than the crispy rice, but it could be the crispy rice, I guess.
Tadik, yeah. I want to say it's because my dad's family's German, but I have always loved liver, chopped liver, pate, all those foods, and liverwurst. Oh my gosh. And that's just something that I thought was like a family tradition, and there were times where I'd be craving it, and I would speak to nutritionists, and they're like, oh, your body's really craving vitamin A and D, and that's what liver is strong in. And it was this moment of, oh my gosh, like, my body knows what I want, and also these foods that are like super like traditionally Jewish that friends around me are not like craving pickled herring the way I am. Like, I love smoked fishes. I love all the liver stuff. And I went to Vienna a couple years ago. I've never been to Germany, but I went to Vienna, and my grandpa's Austrian. And I just like loved all the big spreads they had because it reminded me of home.
It's an interesting combination of cultures, German and Persian.
Yeah.
I mean, was your Shabbat table? I mean, I guess were you ever in a room with both sets of grandparents? Were they, you know, was that did that ever happen?
You know what? It didn't. My parents got divorced when I was really young.
Okay.
So it was always like dad's side, mom's side.
Okay.
But it was interesting to go to, like, you know, during Passover, I have a Persian Seder where we're hitting each other with leeks, and we're pretty much eating Persian food with like some matzah. And then my dad's side, Ashkenazi, which is like we have the traditional Seder plate, we have gefilte fish, we have an orange on the table, you know, we're reading the Haggadah, we have the whole kind of more traditional side of things. My grandma made matzo ball soup. I think that's like the only food she ever cooked. She was a working woman. And I loved it, and her matzo balls were hard, and I always enjoyed that. And it's funny to go to some deli, like a Jewish deli, and get matzo ball soup, and it's a big old soft matzo ball, and I'm thinking, what is this? This isn't how you're supposed to make it. So that's been like funny and fun to kind of take those steps back. And
in your life experience, in your journey, when you look at the Jewish community, can you identify what you think the greatest challenge is facing the Jewish community? I know it seems a little
zing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I have a lot of things to say there. I think one, opening up and letting other people see what it's all about.
Right.
I think some people think it's really closed doors, and that's where all the mystery of like what's really going on in there. And I think that's what leads to anti-Semitism, which is a super sensitive subject for me.
Because
it's scary.
have you experienced anti-Semitism?
Yeah. And I think a lot of Jewish people have, and I don't know if non-Jews know that. I think some non-Jews are aware that other people might not like Jewish people. I don't think they might know how rampant it is around the world, or like the threat or fear we live under, or what our parents or grandparents lived with. I think some people are like, oh, it's a new day, it's all good. Or you grow up in a community, maybe like Los Angeles, where being Jewish is totally celebrated, and you don't realize what's happening in other parts of the world. And I think it's a bigger thing of what's difficult for us is, you know, going through that adversity. And I think in some ways it's what makes us super strong and brings us together as a community. But I think opening our doors and teaching others is a really important part for them to understand, which leads to acceptance. I have a lot of non-Jewish friends who in college loved coming to Hillel with me because they loved Shabbat, or they loved Havdalah, or they wanted to come to the Seder. I organize a lot of Seders in big social settings, and people loved seeing what it was all about, you know? And I want people to have a really positive impression and a Jewish experience because that's what, you know, really brings people and the world together. And I think there's a lot of awesome organizations who are starting to do that more and more.
Do you think you're blowing out the whole concept? What do you call it? Shablunt?
Shablunt.
Is that could that be an entry point? Do you think I mean, really, have you given thought to that? It seems like an interesting concept, right? You
know, now that I'm here in LA, there are Jewish cannabis events all the time. I'm invited to cannabis-infused Shabbats. I went over to see my chavruta partner once, and he was like, come to this house. And I brought my challah. It was still rising. And
you carried a rising challah?
Oh, gosh, I had to. But yes, it happened. And there was a friend of his there who's now a good friend of mine, and Sarah Klegman, who has Challah Hub, and it's like her org. And she's making challahs, and she's making cannabis-infused challahs for a Shabbat she was going to that night. And I was like, who is this amazing woman baking challah? Cannabis-infused challah. Like, I didn't even think of that concept yet, but it's real, and it was an amazing point for us to connect on, and it turns out we're both a part of At the Well, which is an incredible Jewish organization for women that brings together Rosh Chodesh circles around the world during the new moon, which is right about now, and it was fun. It was fun to connect on that point, but there's been Jewish cannabis havdalahs. Right now, I have people reaching out to me about hosting Jewish cannabis seder. Obviously, if it's Passover seder, it's Jewish, but a cannabis-infused one with some famous cannabis chefs here in Los Angeles. And it's funny to think of what the interest is from a community at large, but it's definitely not unique, this concept of infusing those two things.
Okay. All right. So my last of my 4 questions is, if you found yourself face to face with God, what's the one question you would ask? It's too bad that people on the podcast can't see your expressions. You're very expressive.
What's the question I would ask?
There's a very long pause. You could pass, I guess, on the question.
I would not pass on this question.
All right.
Gosh, it's do I ask a time-based question? Do I ask a larger question? But I think it's,
You only get one question.
Only one question.
It's like the genie in the bottle. You only get one wish.
When will we heal?
Okay.
I wanted to say when will she heal, but I don't want to exclude the other part of the equation, and it's really,
I appreciate that, by the way.
You're welcome.
I need to heal too.
Yeah, and it's also about Mother Earth. When will we be able to take care of her? Are we unable to do that at this point? And I think the healing of the planet is connected with food and water and clean air that we also need to heal, and the love that we can bring to each other as a community of plants, animals, humans, rocks, trees, rivers.
All right. So I end the podcast with the lightning round, either or.
Ooh.
Some people do better with this than others. Tel Aviv or Jerusalem?
Jerusalem.
Okay. San Francisco or Los Angeles?
You can't do that to me.
I can't? Oh, you got to pick one.
San Francisco. It's my hometown.
All right. Okay. People are going to hear about that in L.A.
I love it down here. I feel like a traitor choosing Los Angeles, but it's been amazing.
All right.
And
Kiddush with a joint or Kiddush with a glass of wine?
I mean, a joint for me.
Okay. All right. I end on a very sweet note. Okay? Babka or Rugelach?
Rugla, but I did have an incredible babka French toast. Didn't even know it was a thing, and it blew my mind.
Where'd you have that? I'm kind of interested.
Great, in Santa Monica. It's a new spot. I need to look up the name.
All right, well, you'll have to tell me.
It's on Broadway and I think 14th.
All right. I'm a little disappointed that you didn't bring anything for us to talk about, any samples, but it's okay. Next time we talk.
I brought samples. We can try on some creams and other delicious things.
Jackie, it's been a pleasure.
Nice to meet you, Jay.
I wish you the best in this really interesting endeavor you're involved in.
Thank you.